Good afternoon, everybody. My name is London Breed. I'm the supervisor for District 5, the place where this amazing complex now stands. I'm really excited because I believe this is really the model for how affordable housing should be done in San Francisco. When we build housing in other locations, to identify a location like this at the center of our city, to develop all below market rate units, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I want to start by thanking the developer, Brian Spear, for investing in this particular community. And these homes are going to be absolutely amazing, and this is what affordable housing should be about. And so I'm just here to open it up and to express my commitment to continuing to make sure that San Francisco is doing everything it can to continue our work on affordable housing. We talk a lot about when we do it wrong. Well, this is a case where we're doing it right, and we're continuing to push to build more affordable housing in San Francisco. And without further ado, I'd like to bring up Mayor Ed Lee. Mayor Ed Lee has not only been a real advocate for affordable housing, he has been one of the first mayors to take on the issue of public housing in San Francisco. One has been continuously neglected. And so I'm really proud of the work that he's done, not with just public housing, but with affordable housing throughout our city. Thank you all so much for coming. And without further ado, Mr. Mayor, come on up and tell us about this project.
Thank you. Well, Supervisor Breed, thank you very much for that introduction. By the way, I just want to let you know, Supervisor Breed and I, you're going to see a lot of us together because of her commitment to affordable housing, to middle-income housing, and she's working really hard with our office, not just on public housing, but housing for everybody. So I want to thank her for her leadership. And I do mean it. If we're going to build 30,000 units of housing in the next 6 years, I'm going to need friends like Supervisor Breed and all the people that are standing behind me to help get that done. We're aggressive about it because more people want to live in our wonderful city. A lot of people who are living here want to stay in our city, and we can only accommodate that, both of them, which are good for the city of San Francisco, if we are almost militaristic about building and constructing housing such as this wonderful site that we're at. And I'm looking forward to seeing these units, Brian, with you very shortly. But let me begin by restating a commitment that I made at the State of the City address, but one that's evolved in conversations with Supervisor Breed and so many other supervisors, our housing advocates, our business folks in the city. We've got to be aggressive about building good, affordable, middle-income and low-income housing for our city, for our residents. And so when we stated 30,000 units to be built, that sounds like a lot. And in fact, it'll probably represent and reflect the highest amount of housing we've ever built, probably in the history of this city. But we're willing and wishing to do that because that's what's needed to keep our future intact for everyone. And so it's a mixture of not only building housing, but rehabilitating housing that's decaying in front of us. So the funds that we create, the public-private investments that we create, something like the story about this site, the incentives that we will have for the private housing industry for building, as well as the public monies that the supervisors and I will work together to dedicate to this effort, will all conclude in the next 6 years, 30,000 units of housing. We can't get this done simply by declaring this to be the cause. We have to make it happen. And therefore, when last December, when I issued an executive directive to call for all the agencies that work with me to make sure their processes were welcoming of this result, it concluded in a series of meetings that were led by planning, by building inspection, by public works, including our fire department, our housing units, all the different agencies, including the Mayor's Office of Disability and others, coming together, forging a series of meetings that I want to just personally thank you for all doing. Because it's not easy, even if I head up this bureaucracy, to work within the bureaucracy. Ask any CEO of any great place, and you're asking me to do it here, I got to get people internally organized to get this goal done, something that I know Supervisor Breed rings true to her ear whenever we're trying to do something for public housing. Everybody's get on the same map, get on the same program, get on the same pace. And so planning and DBI, I want to recognize Angus McCarthy for being the president of the commission as well. And he's assigned Tom Huey to make sure he and Bill Strong and others work with us, that we take advantage of this goal that I have and suggest that let's reorganize the tools within our city government to work in the same fashion. So they have responded very positively to this directive by immediately suggesting short-range, middle-range, and long-range things that can do. Well, today I have rewarded them by immediately adopting their short-range recommendations. And they include a number of things, but let me highlight a couple of them. One is to say anything that's in the pipeline that has any affordable housing attached to it gets attention immediately. And that's by all the agencies. And you know, that's hard to do. Even if I were to say that, it's hard to actually do without all the leadership of the city agencies coming together and say, this is what we're going to do. But we are, and we're doing for two reasons. One is to reflect implementation of the policy. So we're going to go through planning and DBI and Public Works and all the other agencies together are going to lift those projects up and give them priority attention. The second reason we're doing it is to suggest that the developers of these projects should hear about this immediately, because what that does is have a very dedicated repercussion among the developer community in the city, that if you have affordable housing as part of your development, you're going to get some good attention. It used to be, cynically, that if you had money, you would have a lot of attention. Well, we're saying with this policy, if you got housing, particularly affordable housing, you're going to get the same kind of attention. And this is where policy priorities are reflected. So it's to reverberate within the developer community. And this is very important. Incentivize them to put housing on their sites or to put housing within the site of their private development, such as this does, and to say that your developments will get high priority in the city. Another highlighted part is to have concurrent reviews so that our staffs start juggling things. They're not just saying, I'm not looking at yours because you're not in the queue in the right order. That those housing projects get immediate concurrent review. That's important because, again, that says how important this development is. I also will suggest, as part of this, is that when we said 30,000 units, it's also rehabilitating units. We don't want to lose 10,000 other units while we're building and rehabbing 30,000 units. So we're paying attention to the current housing stock. That's why Delene Wolf, who I've had the chance to work with for many, many years, even in my housing tenant advocacy days at the Rent Board, she and others have pushed forward another policy reflective in these instructions that developments and developers who want to bring forward units that might not have been legal in the past will also get priority treatment. And that as we are looking at each development, we want to make sure that developers are not decreasing the number of units when they're rehabbing buildings and where they're going through the development process. So it's to give a good holistic look at all developments to make sure that we protect the existing housing stock, that we allow developers to bring forth the ability to legalize and make more legal those units that might have been in the shadows, and that we do not permit developers to suggest that, oh, just because I have tenants in units that may not have been fully legal, that I can now finally get rid of them. No, we're saying the opposite. We're saying that to preserve the housing stock, we're going to allow incentives for you to bring those units up, but we're not going to let you decrease the housing unit stock in the city. Those are some of the major highlights of these pronouncements that I'm embracing and we're going to implement, and that all the agency heads here, from Public Works to DBI to planning to disability, to rent board, to the fire department, to all the other agencies, even the Board of Appeals for here, all the others. We're all working together to get this done and to get it done the right way. So I just wanted to bring to your attention, this is a great time. And by the way, it's raining, so smile. This is a great day. I know you people smile when it's sunny. No, no, no. I'm smiling when it rains, when it's the year of the horse, when we got housing that we're going to invite people in. And I know I'm going to meet a tenant pretty soon who's moving in to this site, someone whose family is here in the city, who works in nonprofits, who has a member of the family as part of the artistic community. And, you know, I love to see that. This is San Francisco's families that we want to help stay here, grow here. And they got a small child, so that they're starting out, and they're going to be one of the first ones to move in. I love handing out keys to affordable housing. This is what London and I want to do. This is what we dream about doing in our public life. Hand out keys to people who want to be here, got jobs, want to stay here, want to grow their families. And to be here on Market Street. You know, Brian, you've done a wonderful job. This is a site that you controlled, you were telling me, and if you saw what was happening at this site, being an old restaurant and buffet, and you don't know, I think it was undervalued, underutilized. To have people who are going to come here, 23 families that are going to pay below market rent, half of them one bedrooms, half of them two bedrooms, to start out their families here and be on such a wonderful corridor that we have Wi-Fi'd up for everybody who wants to be here. It's an incredible story. That's why I'm smiling, because we need more of these small site acquisition sites. I know Olson and I are, and Jeff and others and my staff are talking about every single site that we can get control of. We want to have developers help us build more affordable units here. 23 below market rate units. I think it's 11 two-bedrooms and 12 one-bedrooms, right? Am I correct there? Yeah, on this site in the heart of Market Street. Not a dime of city funds went into this. It's all privately paid for as part of the housing obligation that Brian can tell you about that he incurred when building some market rate condominiums along in the upper part of Castro. But they were very glad to do it because they know this can be the example of the kind of housing, the kind of relationships we want to forge with our development communities. And yes, in the future, we'll have more of these. We are talking about how to work with developers like Brian and others who want to do better in our city, do more. This is going to be heartfelt for 23 families, but it will also be a symbol that we need 23 more of these projects immediately. So I'm glad to be here today and to thank our different divisions and departments for working closely with us, signaling a teamwork that Brian could depend on if he's got other projects that got more of these, and to suggest that he and other developers come in right now, work with us. I got 30,000 units that I got to build and replace in the next 6 years, and we're excited to do this. So if we can maybe take a few questions on this before we go. You know, each site will be different, but we know some things that are very true. And developers like Brian will tell you, with their history of working with the city, with the planning department, what moves things and what doesn't move things. Obviously, more bureaucracy never moves things. Environmental review processes could be tightened up without giving up the goals and the purpose. Our agencies working together could do concurrent reviews as opposed to building won't look at anything because planning hasn't looked at it yet, or vice versa, and fire will be the last, something like that. Everybody can work concurrently within that short 3-month period or whatever 6-month period to accelerate all these projects. Why do the handoffs that will cause 1.5 years of review as opposed to 6 months of review with simultaneous stuff. These are all things that are very practical, but gosh, the development community is going to just praise us because they've been talking about this for some time, and our bureaucracies didn't respond very well until we all felt the need to put this on a very fast, accelerated agenda. Yes, it is ambitious, and I will be the first to appreciate that, but I've got to do it for the people who are waiting to move into these places. They're at the door. They're lined up themselves. Can we shorten that line by increasing our efficiencies all across the city? I think we can do it. This year, on Market Street alone, 5,500 units of housing will be open for rent and ownership this year. And with that backdrop, I think we can do it with many more projects. And we need to see Park Merced accelerated. We need to see Hunters Point accelerated. All of our sites of housing accelerated. We can do this. And we can do it with everybody coordinating and saying we're all on the same page. And if not, Supervisor Breed's going to make sure, because she's got a large voice. Other questions?
Does this plan also include hiring new staff in all the departments to make sure that things go faster? There's already backlog in some departments. What are you going to do to make these things go quicker besides your own budget?
You know, I think we were ready, particularly for planning. I know they were ready with additional staff anyway because the whole market of development was increasing in the city. So I don't know if there's going to be necessarily increased staff just for the housing. I think it's the efficiencies because they have budget instructions that don't allow them to increase their budgets. So it's all about efficiencies, and that's why the memo that they've given me were not about so much asking for more staff. It was about what processes that we now have in place that are barriers to efficiencies and acceleration. Well, they've already gotten more staff. I think they could, you know, I think they're telling me, see, other people told me they weren't the problem. And then we all got everybody together to talk to each other, and they realized they were looking at each other as the problem. And so the response we have today and the ideas that we have is not about additional funding. It's about accelerating what we have. Now, by the way, the developer community has told me they're very willing to pay if they get efficiencies out of this. So, because time is money for them. And now we're saying housing and time is money. And therefore, if there is a suggestion that we can accelerate with more staff, I've got a developer community that I've suggested that they would pay for it. But this is not reflected in the recommendations we have today so much as all the ideas that we're getting about accelerating by concurrent reviews and all the things that we're stupidly doing as bureaucrats. Well, certainly for housing developments that are our responsibility, and this includes public housing, yes, we've had to really think through and plan for the financing of many of the, what we call the public housing portfolio. And Olson can give you an update on that because we got some good news from HUD that allows us to put money in areas we didn't have money before, and a good chunk of that money has already started initiating contracts that will repair elevators and stairwells and other things that really affect persons with disabilities and seniors. Yes. Happy Year of the Horse. Thank you very much. We're going to go up here and do it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
SF Gov TV. San Francisco,